One of the things I enjoyed about watching the Miami Dolphins offense in 2022 was the sheer explosiveness of the offense. They kind of took the league off guard, and defenses weren't really adapting to what they were doing, and the Dolphins were making chunk plays all over the place. It seems like defenses had adjusted to what they'd seen the prior season, and the Dolphins faced a lot of too high shells. So the Dolphins really couldn't get that explosive passing game going. And you can just tell how much it affected the offense. Now, Tyreek Hill had a big season, primarily in the first half of the season, but in the second half of the season, the numbers started to trail away a little bit. And some of it had to do with his injury against the Tennessee Titans. He did get his ankle rolled up under in what looked to be at the time a horse collar tackle that honestly wasn't called by the refs. But even with that injury, Tyreek Hill's numbers, as good as they were, just weren't as impactful towards the end of the season. And a lot of it was just how defenses played against the Miami Dolphins. And when the Dolphins played against single high safety looks, they was just as explosive as ever. In week one, the Jacksonville Jaguars went with a single high heavy look, and the Dolphins completely ripped it to shreds. Tyreek Hill had the big 80-yard touchdown, and Jalen Waddle had a pass that was over 60 yards. So the Dolphins were able to get their explosive passing plays as long as they saw those single high looks. But once they started seeing the too high safety shells, the offense went into the tank. So I really hope that the Dolphins find some way to re-energize the offense and find ways to exploit the holes in the defense that's given up when you play a too high safety shell. When you play a too high safety shell and you want to take away everything deep, there's still a lot of ways to get explosive plays on offense. Some of it has to do with deep crossers that cross in front of the safeties and behind the linebackers. Some plays have to do with doing corner routes in which you can get behind the cornerback in two deep defenses, particularly cover two defenses, and you get that honey hole in between the safety and the cornerback and fit the ball in there. Now, honestly, that's probably not Tua's strength in terms of him getting the ball outside of the hash marks. The offense is designed to play within the hash marks, but these are the areas of the field the Dolphins would have to attack if, in fact, they want to incorporate an explosive passing game like they have in the past. Now, Jonnu Smith was good for the offense last year because he was a guy that you could dump the ball off to and he can make yards after the catch. And it really gave the Dolphins another dimension. No other tight end on the roster could do what Jonnu Smith did. Certainly not in 2022 and certainly not in 2023. It didn't matter if it was Durham Smythe or Mike Gesicki or whoever the tight ends were on the roster at the time. None of them can do what Jonnu Smith did in 2024. I'm curious to see what the identity of the offense is going to be in 2025. Are the Dolphins going to continue to use Jonnu Smith the way he did? Will he be the second leading receiver on the team after Tyreek Hill once again? Or will the Dolphins try to find some dynamic way to get their big play guys, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, involved in the offense? That's something I'm really looking forward to seeing. I want to see how the Dolphins put together an offense. And I was surprised in 2022, like most of the league was, but now I want to be surprised again. I want to get that feeling like every time you tune into a Dolphin game, something special is going to happen. And it could be from Devon Achane, it could be from the newly acquired Nick Westbrook-Ikine, it could be from any of the weapons they have on offense, even Jalen Wright, right? I'd love to see him break out, but you would love to see the Dolphins find a way to get that explosive element back into the offense. And some people are saying that in the draft, they could go after Boise State running back Ashton Genty, that he might be a fit for the Dolphins offense to give another explosive element for the offense. But I don't see that. I don't think there's any way that Chris Greer drafts a running back that high, especially when they have a couple of good running backs on the roster already. They signed Alexander Madison as maybe a short yardage back or something. I don't know what they're doing with him. But they have enough running backs to get through the season. So for the Dolphins to invest a first-round pick on a position that really has good talent on it, I think they should be going in another direction. Particularly cornerback or defensive tackle. Those to me seem to be the biggest holes on the team right now. But they might decide that going after another playmaker for Mike McDaniel might be the most important thing. But whatever it takes, I hope the Dolphins find a way to get their explosiveness back. And they hired Ryan Slovic, who was fired from his last post, but now he's caught on with the Dolphins, and his brother also coaches on the team. So he's supposed to be an offensive mind. He had a lot of success in college. We'll see if he can maybe get a fresh set of eyes on the playbook just to see what it is they could be doing a little bit better. You look around the league and the Dolphins were doing well in 2022 and 2023 on offense, but none of their offensive coaches got hired for head coaching jobs or even had interviews, as far as I know. I think Darrell Bevel interviewed for a sort of lateral move. I mean, I know he's the quarterback's coach in Miami. He was once an offensive coordinator under Pete Carroll in Seattle. Now Pete Carroll is at the Raiders. Darrell Bevel, I believe, had an interview there for the offensive coordinator position. It obviously went to someone else, so Darrell Bevel's been retained by Miami. But between Miami's offensive coordinator, their quarterback's coach, they really don't have a lot of people who are interested in their offensive guys. You look at Sean McVay's tree, and he has a list of people being hired off of his coaching tree. Same thing with Kyle Shanahan. But Mike McDaniel's had all the success in Miami in his first 2 or 3 years here, and not a bite. No one's biting after any of these offensive coordinators or of these offensive coaches. So I think that's very interesting. I think it tells you what the league thinks about the Dolphins offense. And imagine Mike McDaniel is doing this with Tua Tagovailoa as his quarterback. And you ask most general managers around the league where they'd rank Tua, he'd probably be somewhere between 10 and 15 in terms of the best quarterbacks in the league. Certainly he wouldn't be in the top 5. So if you don't think that the quarterback is extremely talented, then, you're thinking maybe it might be the coach. Maybe the coach is bringing out the talent in Tua. But the offensive coaching staff, they're not getting any bites from any other organization. So it just might show us exactly what the rest of the league thinks about the Miami Dolphins offense and Mike McDaniel's coaching staff in general. And I don't know if that's an indictment on the coaching staff and their personnel, or it just has to do with the fact that in this hiring cycle, people from other teams were probably more attractive. But the Dolphins really need to find a way to invigorate some fresh set of eyes, some new schemes, something to catch the league off guard again. Because if they can recapture that magic in 2022, and they can keep Tua healthy this time, because when they had that magical year in 2022, Tua wasn't there for the end of it. He got hurt. And then in 2023, when Tua was healthy, the entire team was hurt. The entire defense certainly was hurt. And even in the playoff game against the Chiefs in sub-freezing temperatures, the offensive personnel were pretty hurt. Mostert was pretty banged up. Tyreek was banged up. He still had the ankle injury. Jalen Waddle wasn't 100% healthy. So you would like to think that the Dolphins can get there again, but this time with all their major parts healthy. So we'll see what will happen in 2025. But this is definitely a pivotal year for the Dolphins, and I'm looking to see what they can do to reinvigorate the offense in 2025. So that's it for this video. If you like this video, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button to get all the latest content, and leave a comment in the section below. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.